Good morning everyone, and I'd like to just take this opportunity to thank Linda and Gillian and the team at NIDOS, is that better? Okay. For inviting me to speak this morning. I think that this is a very important event today to recognise the importance of really working in collaboration across all sectors of Scotland's economy to promote international development. And international development is really vital for Scotland's economy going forward as we move out of the recession that we've been in. As Linda mentioned, I'm International Director with SCDI. The Scottish Council for Development and Industry is an independent membership organisation. We've been around since 1931. Originally came out of the previous Great Depression in the 1930s, when a group of business people got together and thought, what do we need to do to really re-inject the economy, reignite the economy? How can we potentially attract inward investment into Scotland? So SCDI was set up in 1931, and over the years we've developed a track record for promoting international opportunities for Scottish businesses. We've been taking trade delegations overseas for nearly 50 years now, and work very closely with the Scottish Government, so hopefully that will give you a bit of background as to why I'm here talking today. I'd like to cover three areas this morning with the time that I have. Firstly, really the importance of international trade to Scotland. Secondly, understanding the interdependence of our international activity in terms of our companies currently trading overseas. And then finally, importantly for this session, recognising the role that Scotland can play in terms of promoting sustainable international development and responsible trade. So looking back, we know that Scotland's always been a very outward-looking and trading nation. Our cities have thrived on being outward-looking, and our international reputation has been built on the success of many sectors of Scotland's economy. We only need to look at the capital here: financial services, engineering from Glasgow, biosciences from Dundee, and the phenomenal success of the oil and gas sector in Aberdeen. But international growth just isn't limited to cities. We also have to look at the success of our regional economies, and that's ensuring vital and thriving economic communities in some of the most remote regions of Scotland, food and drink from the Highlands and Islands, for example, and also looking at the importance of the textile sector in Ayrshire and the Borders. But we now very much live in a globally connected economy, and as the world becomes more connected, international trading opportunities for Scotland will continue to grow. So this leads to increasing opportunities for Scotland to increase its standing on the global stage, and importantly, it generates sustainable economic growth for our country. I'm sure that this was outlined earlier in the morning session, but international trade is a key priority for the Scottish Government. They've recently launched a 5-year trade and investment strategy, and that's underway to boost our international trade links, is to attract new investment from overseas growth markets, and promote Scotland's capabilities as an internationally competitive business location. So this strategy aims to bring in another £2 billion of net gross value added to the Scottish economy through trade and investment activity by 2015. And in addition to that inward investment target, the Scottish Government's been very bold in setting targets to increase Scotland's exports by 50% over the next 6 years. Now at SCDI we can believe that this can be achieved, but it will require the concerted effort across both the public and the private sector and across all key industries of our economy. And this is where we must include the social enterprises, the third sector, as part of this overall international strategy, and that's why it's very important that organisations like NIDOS have their role to play in this as well. So we know international trade is increasingly important to Scotland's economy, and our statistics demonstrate the success of Scottish companies operating in very tough global markets. We also have some key competitive advantages from our excellent academic skills and our skills within our business base as well, our infrastructure in Scotland, and of course our wonderful natural assets, which we're seeing more and more now commercial opportunities in terms of international business. To give you some statistics on where we are in terms of international trade at the moment, Scotland currently exports around £16 billion worth of manufactured goods every year. Our top markets are the USA, France and Germany. Foreign investors in Scotland currently employ over 600,000 people in Scotland, and they have a combined turnover of £145 billion. Our exports of goods rose by 3.5% last year. Over 4,000 businesses are currently exporting tradable goods from Scotland. Our food and drink exports are at record levels. France was the top market for Scottish food and drink last year, buying £276 million worth of products. The oil and gas international supply chain has a phenomenal reputation in global markets for innovation and vision. The industry now accounts for £7 billion of income to the Scottish economy each year. And when we look at the success of the North Sea, that's very much been built in terms of the experience of recovering oil and gas from the North Sea markets, and it's now giving Scottish companies the chance to go overseas and to work in some of the world's most developing economies where oil and gas are natural resources of those markets. And what we need to also consider is Scotland's position as a low carbon economy now, and there are significant opportunities to sell that expertise overseas. And I know later on in one of the workshops you're going to be hearing from Scour Energy. They're a company that we've worked with that are doing some phenomenally successful work overseas. And again, that's very much in terms of exporting Scotland's know-how. Whisky exports, of course, continue to grow at a tremendous pace. And whisky exports currently account for £2 billion of income to our economy from exports. Emerging markets have boosted whisky sales by 22% in the first half of 2011. And more people are enjoying a taste of Scotland overseas. So this leads me on to the importance of interdependence in our economy for internationalisation. When we talk about an interconnected Scotland, we need to consider how is Scotland connected to overseas markets. Are our airports able to compete to win new routes, to enable companies to visit their target partners? How well are we connected to London? What is the knock-on implications of the lack of a third runway at Heathrow? What are the challenges that will face for regional hubs in Scotland in terms of remote rural areas? How do they target overseas markets? It reduces the capacity for Scotland and potentially makes us less competitively advantaged. But we don't need to also just think about air connectivity. We need to think about broadband connectivity. We need to think about rail connectivity, but also connectivity in terms of our business network. And this is where SCDI does a lot of work in terms of bringing businesses together. There's an importance of integrated services to support internationalisation. Financial services, legal sector, marketing your products overseas. To support our companies to meet their international ambitions, we need an interconnected strategy across Scotland. But what really is vital for Scotland, if we want to live in an economy that delivers sustainable and fair growth, is fair and responsible trade. It's important for companies looking to trade overseas that they do this in a responsible way. It's vital to our international reputation, and Scotland does have a very good reputation overseas, and we want that to be maintained going forward. SCDI knows that Scotland is committed to being one of the world's fairest trade nations and supporters of responsible trade, and we believe that Scotland is capable of taking the lead as being one of the world's most ethically trading country, and is one of the government's key priorities through its international development plans. That's why it's very important for small businesses to access the support networks that exist to help businesses internationalise. SCDI works with the Scottish Government and the Foreign Office to support businesses to access markets including China, India, Brazil. And it's challenging for small businesses to access some of these markets. There is a risk involved, it is difficult, there is uncertainty in terms of how you will get paid, who your partners potentially are, but that's where it's vital to look at the support networks that exist. We also need to look at the Commonwealth nations in terms of business opportunities, and this is an area where SCDI is starting to do much more work on over the next 2 to 3 years. The Commonwealth Games in 2014, we believe, will present an unrivalled opportunity for Scotland to really develop new trade links with some of our Commonwealth nations. Look at the many countries in Africa, for example, as Stuart's just mentioned, huge opportunities there for us to sell our knowledge and expertise. And if we want to see a real economic legacy from the Commonwealth Games, international partnerships with Commonwealth nations will be vitally important. In fact, as part of that, SCDI has invited Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General, to Scotland this year to speak to our members about the importance of leadership and the place that Scotland can take on the world stage. So what we really need to look at overall is minimising the risk to small businesses in terms of international trade. It is easier to do business than many people think, but we need to foster a concept of ethical trading to our business. This then fosters an ethos in Scotland of sustainable economic prosperity and ensures our reputation as a trading nation continues, and it builds on our past successful achievements. We know that increased international trade and continuing to compete with the best global companies will be the key drivers to sustainable economic prosperity for Scotland going forward. and STDI very much looks forward to working with our partners and to working with organisations like NIDOS to achieve our shared ambitions for Scotland. Thank you very much.